Welcome to another episode of the School Podcast. Today we got a very, very exciting guest. But before we get into it, I need to give a massive thank you to Gadget for making this all happen. If you're looking for world-class videos or pictures for your school, then do get in touch. And of course, Dreams to Reality, running programs in school on a daily basis. We have world-class speakers and coaches delivering impact. So get in touch with Dreams to Reality as well. Right. Matthew.
How you doing?
Thank you for making the trip today from Birmingham all the way to Bristol.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
I'm looking forward to this one. So the reason why is because I've seen you in action in multiple of different ways through the company, that your own company, but also working in school. So I've seen your ability in front of me. I've seen your presence, I've seen your knowledge, the education behind it, but also the execution as well. So for me, you are actually somebody I look up to and somebody I respect because you are living it, you are doing it. There's a lot of fakes in this industry, but you're out there, you're doing it, not just when you're in school, but also through your company.
Yeah.
But you're on holiday in Ibiza with your family,
Yeah.
and someone says, "Hey mate, what do you do for a job?" What does Matthew do?
I think I've finally managed to get to a point where I can describe it, or I can outline it quite quickly. And I always say I'm a pastoral specialist, but I do specialise in two things, which is engagement and people strategy. So what I mean by that is I've always been good with communicating with people, but I feel like over the years I've mastered the art of communication with young people, because young people are the generation who feel unheard, they always feel unseen. And I think as adults, so many of us have forgotten that we were once young people, we were once them. So I've specialised in behaviour and engagement because what I'm looking at is how can I be of influence to young people, how can I help young people, and how can I do that through different forms of engagement. So yes, I am a pastoral specialist, but specifically I am an engagement and behaviour specialist.
So I always remember the first time we kind of met, and your school at the time, obviously you've done a lot since then, has invested in me, and I could see straight away you're always wary of whatever the school brings in. Probably because of what I've already said, there's a lot of fakes in the industry, I guess, but not trying to blow smoke up the work I kind of do, but what do you look for? Like, how do you establish, or how have you established what good engagement looks like, communicating with young people look like? Is there a way about it? Is there a particular strategy? Yeah, what does that look like for you?
I think it starts with the language that people use in regards to how they talk to young people. There's a lot of performative behaviour when it comes to young people. A lot of people come around and they want to put on a performance. You can see that, yes, you want young people to like you, but before they can even like you, you have to kind of get them to engage. So for example, when I spoke to you and you were kind of giving me your outline about what you wanted to do with the young people, I'm not more so interested in hearing what people want to do. I'm more so interested in hearing how they're going to do it. I think there are so many people who will say, oh, you know, we do this and we do that. And I'm saying, that's great. It sounds fantastic to hear that you do these things, but how do you do it? What differentiates how you do it to how other people do it? You know, when you talk about how we engage with young people, do we understand the importance of stuff like tonality, body language, how we introduce ourselves to young people, how we try and be authentic, and how we don't try and force who we are on them, but more so learn who they are, and then eventually they'll learn to become more comfortable around you so you can show them more of who you are. And so when I look at what I believe is good practice and people coming to work with young people, I'm thinking, I don't want to hear what you tell me you're going to do or what you think you're going to achieve. How are you going to do these things? What is your background? What is your experience? And I think the big thing for me is why. Why do you want to do these things? Where has your motivation come from to want to be this insightful or this impactful person for these young people? Because unfortunately, where there are children, where there are young people, there is always a gain for some people. And I understand this. I'm not blind to the fact the world is the world. However, we can't be around young people claiming to be a change that is necessary when actually we don't even know how to do the basics. You know, how do we speak is, do we understand cultural differences? Do we understand communities? Do we understand backgrounds? Do we understand faith or religions? Do we understand struggles? Do we understand the ups and the downs of the daily life of young people? Once again, I'm not interested in hearing about all the stuff that you say you're going to do. I want to know how. I want to know how you're going to do it.
There's so much to dive into there, and I think there's so much to even talk and break it down. Even to be fair, at the school that you worked at, obviously there's a massive Asian community, right? Massive. And I always remember one of my questions is, put your hands up if you would like to win the lottery. And I normally then say, I know some of you won't be able to for religious reasons, but if you could, put your hands up if you'd like to win a lottery. And I remember this girl shouting out, that's haram. And I said, yeah, you're right, but don't tell me you got a vape in your pocket at the same time. And then everyone went, oh. But it's about understanding, and I think one thing that you bring, and I think even myself, is it doesn't matter what type of school I go into, my language doesn't necessarily change. I'm still me. I think sometimes people try and pretend they're something, and straight away the children, they can sniff it out.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that sometimes working in the schools that you've worked in?
Children are far more perceptive than adults give them credit for. They're paying attention all the time. You know, when I was in school, and I didn't matter what school I was in or what I was doing, I'd always say to staff, before you work out who they are, they're working out who you are. And they'll do it very quickly, and they'll ask certain questions, and they'll push certain limits, and they'll push certain boundaries because they want to see how you respond. One thing I've always heard from children is, sir, how comes, you know, you'll be telling us off, but you'll be smiling like 2 seconds later? And I'll always say, because I was never really that angry. It was more, I wanted your attention. Now I have your attention, we can have a conversation. And sometimes to get people's attention, you have to speak a certain way. So once again, do we know how to use volume? Do we know how to use tone? Do we know how to use the proper language that young people can understand, so we can have these conversations? Once again,
But
it's
it's
all
not
part
personal either.
No, it's never personal.
Do you understand?
Yeah,
So it's not personal.
It's never personal.
And I think a lot of educators, they take it personal.
Yeah.
And I think, as you said, you're just challenging the behaviour. You're not challenging the person.
Yeah.
Which I think, do you feel like people struggle with that?
I think they do, because, and that comes down to people's preconceptions about what they think working with young people is going to be like. I always say working with young people isn't a movie. I don't care how many movies you've watched where these inspirational people go into spaces and do all this great stuff. Working with young people is not a movie. You're gonna encounter some really tough times working with young people. And I will say, working in education, I've seen some of the best practice working with young people I've seen in my entire career, whether that be in education, community, social care, criminal justice. I've seen some of the best engagement, but also I think it's fair to say in education, you might see some of the worst, because it's people who are inexperienced, who don't know yet, but have come into a space with an idea of what they think it's going to be, quickly find out that it's not, but they're not willing to adapt with the young people they're working with or understand it. And I'm going to keep going back to the whole idea of, and this is where we have to learn how to better engage, how to better communicate, because without that, we can't build appropriate and impactful relationships.
I think you just speaking there, even you and me spoke a lot about business and growing a business, and we talked a lot behind camera about our own personal lives. And I think sometimes, regardless of what we go through, when you're in front of the people, it's on. It's like everything else is forgotten. And that's probably my most enjoyable time. Maybe not traveling 4 or 5 hours to get somewhere, but when I'm in front of people, that is the time where all of these things talk about.
That's right.
That's the challenge. Like that's what we're in it for, which I think is fascinating. And you mentioned like the how. Like, don't tell me what you're gonna do. Tell me how you're gonna do it. Why is the how so important to you?
Because the how exposes the why for me. When I ask people how, a lot of people then begin to stutter and say, oh, we've got a booklet and we've got this and we've got that. That's fantastic. How do you get the children to engage with the booklet? How do you get the children to engage with the material? The big how for me with a lot of practitioners is that while I do believe you should take time to understand the young people, I don't feel like there's enough transparency with so many practitioners about who they are, where they come from, why they want to do the work. So that means that a lot of children are looking at this person in front of them. Often it's a stranger, because you're going to be an external provider going into different spaces, and you want these young people to engage with you, but they don't know you. So when I ask people, how are you going to do it? where does your motivation come from? What is your background? What is your experience working with these different types of children? The how is important to me because you can have a goal for what you hope to achieve. If you have no idea how you're going to get there, then all you have is a fantastic idea. And I'm telling you now, sometimes the best laid plans will be dismantled by a disruptive group.
But okay, so this is where I need to break it down. So a lot of the time, some schools will say to me, what are you going to do on day 3 and day 4 of day 5 or day 6 of the program? And the truth is, I mostly turn around, I say, it's not a professional answer. I say, I don't know yet. And the reason why is because I will work out what they give me.
Yep.
I'll have the day 1 set in stone.
Yep.
And then my goal will then be to go away and think, what do they need? Not what I think they need before I get there, but what do they need?
Do you know what people don't realise about working with children?
As you said quickly, you can have the best plan in the world, and then it just gets scrapped. Why am I going to do goal setting on day 4?
Right.
They might not even be there yet.
Children and young people, they pick you, you don't pick them. Okay? So you're going to, hence why when people say stuff like the plan, what are you going to do on this day? Obviously, there should be a plan. There should be a program, a set program you put in place. But what should be made clear all the time is how adaptable that program can be according to the needs of children. So, for example, when I talk to people all the time, I talk about the fact that I will build bespoke programs according to the needs of your children. What happens is you get a lot of practitioners, teachers, mentors, therapists, and they have this set way of doing things. And then when the children and the young people don't fall within the set parameters, then the labels start flying around about what this young person is or what this young person could become. What we have to understand is, yes, we build the programs, but we also have to understand...
Your program's a toolbox.
That's it.
So you might go in, work it out, deliver.
Exactly.
What do I need? Where do I go in the toolbox?
And in between that, things have to change because you might have a plan and you could be going to plan. So, for example, goal setting for me, if I'm going to go and do a mentoring program, will be in session 1 because what your goal setting is for me is about saying, this is what I want to achieve with you all, and I hope you all buy in, and I really want you to be a part of the process. And I feel like a big part of that process is us setting the goals together. There's no point in me coming here and telling you what we're going to do for the next 6 to 12 weeks, and none of you care about anything I have to say. You're not really interested. It's not something that resonates with you. So I think it's really important that we have these set programs that we build, but we have to adapt. We have to grow with the children, and you never know by the end of the program what you thought you were going to achieve. You achieve something completely different, 100%. But the work has still been fruitful. The work has still been impactful, and it's had that kind of push on their thinking processes. That, you know what, this has been great. I've really got something from this. I've really learned something from this because the people who have come in have catered to our need, not just what the space thinks we require. And I think that's really important.
So what other stuff do you do outside of working in schools as well?
So I am the founder and lead facilitator of a company called the We Think Group. The We Think Group was founded in 2020 during COVID, while I was sitting down really worrying about how COVID was going to impact the children all being at home, their development socially, academically, psychologically, emotionally. There was just so many things that I was thinking, when these children come back into our spaces, schools, provisions, colleges, they're not going to be the same people that they were when they left. And I started my career in community. I used to run a football team for 8 years. And I've still got great relationships with so many of those players now as they're in their mid-20s. And for me, the company was about, how can I create something that tackles the problems or the concerns or the issues that often our spaces don't cover for whatever reason, or there's no one in those spaces who specialise in those kind of interventions. So I do workshops, day sessions with young people, mentoring programs with young people. I do a lot of training with working professionals and volunteers around engagement strategy, pastoral practice, youth work, criminal justice, or helping to support young people going through criminal justice or to steer them away from potentially entering the criminal justice system. And through all of the work I'm doing, not only with the young people, but with the practitioners, my whole aim is that where there are certain gaps in our systems that we're not really addressing, mainly because we don't have the staff to address them all the time, can I come in, can someone from the company come in and fill those gaps in those spaces with innovative work that looks very different to what the children see every single day, that they can engage with, that hopefully they can enjoy, but most importantly, that they can take something away from.
Why is that important to you?
Because we have too many children, in my opinion, slipping through the cracks. And I think that there are so many important things that need to be addressed that aren't being addressed simply because, like I said, we don't have the time, we don't have the staff or the expertise, or we just don't feel like, for whatever reason, it's important until something bad happens, until a concern pops up, and then all of a sudden we turn certain things into a discussion point. So my big why for wanting children to see things a bit different, wanting young people to see things a bit different, is even thinking back to my own upbringing and my own education and my own time. There were so many things that were happening around me as a young person that were just never addressed. And it wasn't because no one cared, it's because there just wasn't the right people to address these topics. There wasn't the right people, the expertise to come in who wanted to come in and do this work, to engage us, to show us different ways of thinking. So once again, my big why with Rethink is I really want people to start thinking about things differently. And the reason why it's called We Think is because it's not about us. I want it to be a collective. How does the collective think? We should be talking and engaging with young people. We should be teaching young people. We should be helping and supporting young people. We don't have all the answers. We would like to talk to as many different organisations and work with as many different organisations as possible, because it's all about outcomes. And that is, the ethos of We Think.
Access education software is there for those busy school days, for the chaotic mornings when getting out of bed without a coffee can feel impossible. We're there for the multitaskers, for the cashless lunch payments, the fussy eaters, and the ones that always forget the school trips, the letters home and the countless emails. And we're there for the teachers, making sure everyone's paid accurately and on time. And we're no stranger to the world of education-related pensions. We're there for the time off, whether you choose it or whether it chooses you. We're here for those looking for the best, for those focusing on developing and empowering themselves and others, and for those looking to build their teams. We're there for those tasked with keeping the budget in check in challenging times, for those planning the recommendations to governors, for budget monitoring and those that need to report on adjustments throughout the year, for those planning the next budget and the next and the next, for the years to come. We're here for the information seekers, insight detectives, and real-time data warriors, for those that need accurate reports generated in minutes. We're here for the children, for those that want thousands of award-winning, easy-to-digest learning videos across more than 30 subjects in multiple languages, for the anxious exam takers, and for every single person that wants to make education great. Once the school day is done, we'll still play our part. We're still there for updates and to keep parents informed, and for those homework assignments and all-important grade boosts. We're still there for the governor meeting and the parents' evening, the after-school clubs and the extracurricular classes. And as for the hard-working teachers and staff, we're here, hoping you can find a little extra time in the evenings to unwind. So when the day comes to an end, teachers, parents and children across the land can rest easy, knowing that Access Education software will be there tomorrow to lend you a hand. Access Education, giving you the freedom to put education first.
So I've gone through your Instagram, and there's a lot of fascinating stuff on your Instagram and things that you say with your chest, things you're extremely passionate about. I'm going to read them out to you, and then if you can just dive into it and explain what you mean by that, I think that'd be great. So you put at one point, stop negatively labelling young people, please. What does that mean?
When I went to uni, I studied criminology at university, and one of the first lectures that I was in, he was talking about something called labelling theory and the impact of labelling theory and what happens to young people. And we read about a theory that involved two concepts, which was an actus and a mens rea, which was the way that we look at young people and how we label young people, and that if you continually label a person something...
What's an example of a label?
So if I tell you, for example, you're always naughty, You're always bad. Every time you come into my classroom, you're a disruption. You take nothing seriously, but you keep repeating these labels, you keep repeating these words. Eventually, even if it's not true, a lot of young people will begin to adopt those labels. They begin to see themselves as what they're described as. And not only that, some young people will even take notoriety from it. Yeah, they all know me. This is why people see me a certain way. But adversely, it can be the same for positive things. Oh, you've done fantastic today. You've been amazing. You worked really hard. You know, I'm so proud of the progression that you've made in whatever space you're in. Young people will digest that too. Like, you know, this is fantastic. I'm getting the positive reinforcement. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do all these things. However, I think we're at a time now where whenever we talk about young people, it seems to be very negative. Oh, look what they've done. They've got no manners. They've got no respect. They've got no aspiration. How are these children being raised? They're antisocial behaviour. It's like there's so many negative tropes about young people, but yet we're wondering why we're not seeing this new generation of children and young people that we want to see. How many of you are positively reinforcing these children? How many of you are telling them how great they can be, how amazing their work is, about how they've got great minds, they could change the world, they can impact their spaces? I know from my experience that young people are hearing more negative things said to them or about them than positive, and I'm getting sick and tired of it, because it's people like me or people who work like me and do our thing. We're having to try and break all of those negative labels every single day. But the problem is, if we're positive for our 1 day session, or if we're positive for our 12 weeks, but then after our 12 weeks, the environment comes back into play and it's negative. We have to stop and ask ourselves, why are our young people adopting these negative labels? Because they're hearing them far too often. So my thing is, stop negatively labeling young people, because we're not going to start seeing positivity when we're throwing negativity at them all the time.
Respectfully, please take the time to learn their names.
Do you know how rude it is to be around children every single day or on a regular basis and you don't even know what their name is? So we're asking them to be respectful and have manners and to treat people equally and so on and so forth. And you can't do something as basic as learn their name.
How common is that?
I think it's very common, to be honest. And depending on how big your space is and how many young people you engage, you understand that it's difficult. You know, sometimes you will make a mistake, but how hard is it just to say, sorry, I'm really sorry, I don't remember. Can you just remind what your name is, please? So that we can address them properly. So much about us is within our titles. How often do you hear when you talk to people, like, for example, one of the first questions that adults say to each other, what do you do for a living? And let's talk about one of the first questions people ask you, what's your name? Great. What do you do for a living? Because so much of who we are and what we do is a part of our character. So why is it we're working with children and young people every single day, or on a regular period, or daily, monthly, whatever it may be, and you couldn't even learn their name? They have to learn yours. If they kept calling you Oi, and you have their name, or excuse me, my name is such and such, my name is this. Stop being so disrespectful and wanting young people to have a certain level of manners and respect, and you can't do something as simple as learn their name.
We've had a few guests come onto our podcast, and high up in education, and we've gone to their houses for some of them, and we've had some of them turn around and say, so what do you do? To me. I'm thinking, have you not done a little bit of research before this? Which is also rude though, right? Yeah. So I think if they can't even, they've invited me into their house, but they don't even know what you do for a living. I do. Yeah. But somebody like our first guest since the rebrand, John Murphy, he was the former CEO of Oasis Academy. He said, yeah, I've seen all your stuff. Went all through your YouTube. And I'm thinking, I'm not posting on YouTube for a long time. What did he watch? But he still did his work. He still looked into what we'd done and the work that we'd done. Mm-hmm. I guess even for him to understand whether he's going to use his time to be a part of the podcast, which sometimes is baffling. And the reason why I just say that is because that's what some educators can't even look into that. Yeah. Imagine trying to learn names as well.
And I see it all the time. You, come here, please. How hard is it for us to just to say, oh, excuse me, can you come here for a second, please?
I've seen that.
And it's just like, we have to make sure that when we are around our young people, the same amount of respect that we want given to us, we must show to them. This whole idea of, do as I say, not as I do. We've got to throw these archaic, old ways of thinking away, because our young people today are very different. They want to feel respected, and so it starts with something as small as learn their name.
Is everybody in a school building a role model?
They should be.
But are they? Not saying whether it's positive role model, but are they a role model?
I'm going to say they should be, and I think that's you can read between the lines of that, to be honest. I will say 99% of people who work with young people in the school or anywhere else around the country who work with young people, I'm sure in their minds that they want to be role models, they want to be seen as an example. I think sometimes people forget their way, and they forget that being a role model is part of working with young people, because they're watching you all the time and you have to be an example to how you want them to behave. But sometimes, once again, people get caught up in the job, get caught up in the environment, get caught up in spaces and the politics of wherever you work. But I will say, for the most part, there should be, and a lot of people try to be, but sometimes we do get a lot of professionals and practitioners who forget this.
So how important is relationships?
There's nothing that can be achieved without one. Absolutely nothing that can be achieved without
true?
a positive relationship. Yeah, I think anything fruitful or lasting can't be achieved without having some form of a relationship with the people that you work with. I know it's really cliche, and people will say, oh, you can't do anything without good working relationships. I'm telling you now that if you don't have a good working relationship with the young people you work with, unless these children are heavily self-motivated, which most of them are not, unless these children have the most mature head on their shoulders with a vision of who they want to be and where they want to go, which most young people do not, they're going to need people that they trust, that they see as, once again, a good example, people that they deem to be good people that they can look at and mirror themselves from, and that all comes from the relationships that you build with your young people. What is a good
relationship? The reason why I say, Matthew, right, so I've been in the school when this teacher literally walked down the line, dabbed up all the kids, and I then seen in a session after, because I was watching it, I was observing it, these same students who he probably thought he had a good relationship with, he was telling them to be quiet, and they're like, go away, sir. And he had no authority then. Because there's the relationships,
there is,
but then there's respect as well.
Because every relationship should have boundaries.
Okay.
That's why.
Yeah,
every relationship should have boundaries. And whether that be your relationship with your young people, it can be your friendship groups, your romantic relationships, every relationship you build, every successful relationship you build should have boundaries, should have expectations, should have standards. And the reality is that, once again, it goes back to what I was saying to you in the beginning of this conversation. There are some people who, they're not authentic in what they do. They want something and they do things in hope that they're going to get something in return, but there has been no appropriate boundary set. I believe that all young people should be treated equally, but not necessarily the same, because all young people aren't the same. Some people understand certain boundaries. Some people need tighter boundaries. Some people are going to have looser boundaries because they are how they perceive certain things, how they've been raised, culture, just general behaviour standards themselves, home lives, parenting. It all stems from all these different things. And I think sometimes we have to be careful not to conflate being liked to being respected, because it's not the same. So when we look at how we build these relationships, it starts with, who are you? Once again, to the spaces, who are you? This is why I'm here. This is what I expect. This is why I expect it. Every now and again, unfortunately, we won't get along because I'm going to do things that I know you need, but you won't like. But we're going to keep doing it. And what I found is, the more consistent you are in approach, the more you do things that you know long term is going to benefit them, especially if it's constant communication, then they'll respect it even when they don't like it. But we have to be very careful of when we're building these relationships and what a positive relationship is. It is a mutual understanding and respect about what you should get from me, what I should get from you, where we meet in the middle, and then it's built upon levels of understanding and respect.
So before you started your company, your business as well, and obviously your pastoral manager, I didn't realise you was a teacher as well. You got your qualifications for teaching and stuff.
I think the thing with education, for me, is that it's not so much about wanting to be in a classroom or wanting to teach or wanting to do anything. I fell into education. I didn't want to be a teacher. I didn't want to be in school. When I went to university,
So many people say that though.
yeah, when I went to university, I went to university because I wanted to study criminology to one day maybe becoming a youth offending officer or a probation worker, because I grew up around a lot of young people who were getting in trouble, so on and so forth, the usual cliche stories that we don't really have to go into. And all I would hear about is, my probation officer did this, my youth offending team officer did that. They just want me to go to prison, or they want me to go back, or so on and so forth. And I wasn't really interested in much, if I'm honest. And I just thought, let me just go and study something that could be useful. Unfortunately, when I came out of university, we were going through I think one of the first or second round of austerity back then. And a lot of the public service jobs were basically being taken away. They didn't exist anymore, or you had to go and do more specific degrees. So I started working in a children's home, working with young people with criminal backgrounds. Absolutely loved it, but I was a young father myself, so working 7 days a week and working shifts and so on and so forth, and running the football team, didn't really have it. And then there was someone who said to me how about education? And once again, it wasn't so much about teaching in a classroom. The person who spoke to me was like, why don't you go into inclusion, pastoral leadership? Because there was times when a lot of schools were doing non-teaching roles for pastoral leaders. So I actually started my career working in what was called the inclusion room, or the support room, where my job was to support the children who were taken off normal timetable because of behaviour and try and prevent exclusions. So they come and sit with me and they work with me for the day and other supporting staff, and we would work with them, do one-to-one sessions with them. And the whole idea was, when you come into this space, we're going to get you ready to go back into mainstream lessons, because we don't want you at home, we don't want you excluded. This is a school that was in a high crime area, a lot of youth violence, a lot of young people just basically picking their own paths. And the whole idea was, we don't want them out there doing that when they should be in school. So they go to the support room, as it was called, and which is an inclusion room, and we work with them to make sure you don't get excluded. And then from there, I applied to do pastoral leadership at another secondary school, and I was the youngest person to apply. I was only 24 at the time. And for those people who work in education, a lot of pastoral leadership jobs, they're given more so to more experienced staff. But I was given the opportunity to work at a fantastic school, brilliant school. They were so innovative in their thinking in regards to pastoral leadership, and ended up there. I worked there for 3 years. And then I wanted a challenge, because I felt like I was routine now. I knew exactly what I was doing, and ended up becoming a pastoral leader and doing a lot of DSL work. And it was just, once again, love it. No complaints. The job and the young people, fantastic. But as with everyone with professional life, you always think to yourself, what's next? Where am I going next? What am I going to do? What spaces could I potentially take up to be more useful, and not just kind of plant myself in this one space? So for me, it was never about the classroom. It was about being in a place where I could be more impactful with children, where I could help children, support children, and help with their social mobility and development.
Sometimes, painfully, you may lose them.
So this one's a bit different, because this one isn't so much to do with education or how we engage young people. It's to do with the fact that as practitioners, we never really speak about loss. We never speak about the young people that we don't have anymore, or the young people who didn't follow what you wanted for them. They make their own choices. Well, that means that, and a lot of those choices mean that, unfortunately, negative things happen. For me, in my career, it's been about losing young people to the prison system, losing young people to the care system, and then, as you know, with the care system, you get moved all over the country. Not very rarely, but often, you do get moved out of your space. And then, more drastically, and more finitely, it's losing them full stop, because they're not here anymore. And when I wrote that post, it was a at a time when I was struggling with grief, because a few years ago, one of the young people that I work with, that I love, someone that I see all of my boys from my football team as my brothers, literally like blood couldn't make us any closer. Unfortunately, he was taken from us due to violence and him becoming a victim of said violence. And I was struggling at the time with, once again, wrapping my head around the whole idea of you can work so hard to progress these young people, but in a moment they're gone because of the actions of another young person. And what was wild to me with that situation was that the young man that I lost, that I hold so deeply to my heart, was actually murdered by another child that I'd worked with earlier on in my career. So when we look at the dynamics of this work that we do, one of the reasons why I always say I'm not like most people who do this work with young people in education or community or whatever else, because I didn't just do this to do something that made me feel good. A lot of what I do right now is about prevention, is about being proactive, is about opening the eyes of young people and also practitioners to the very real realities that our young people are living in, that they are facing, that they are struggling with, and how can we be a service that supports these young people. Dealing with loss has been something that has pushed me to the limits of my capabilities. There's been times, Cam, when I've wanted to quit. Said, you know what? Why am I working in a job or a space that is so emotionally impactful? Why don't I go and find a training program? Yeah, why don't I go and find a training program in a company where I'm dealing with inanimate objects and just, I don't know, go into sales or recruitment or something that I know I could be good at. But no, I genuinely believe that in my heart of hearts, my job here, my purpose here, my duty here is to do what I'm doing right now, which is to be of service to young people in any way, shape or form that I can be, but also really push, challenge, encourage and inspire practitioners who are working with young people. We have to always be better, and it's not always going to be easy, and you're not always going to enjoy it. And we're going to have some real down moments, but the work is and will be amazing.
Hello, my name is Anas Genovs. I am the founder of Edurio. Edurio is England's leading stakeholder feedback solution for schools and school trusts. We work with over a couple of thousand schools and about 200 school trusts. A lot of the work that we do is with staff retention, trying to understand the effects leading to it. And our research shows that the top 3 factors contributing to staff decisions to stay or leave their trusts or schools are mental, emotional well-being and the stress levels they feel. Second, the workload and how balanced it is. And third, the relationship with their leadership, whether they feel trusted and respected. Those 3 factors have more of a relationship with staff retention than school size, area, region, and any other factor. So whatever you do, make sure that in your school, you work carefully on the culture and you really understand what's contributing to it.
As you know, got on my t-shirt, dreams to reality. I think we've spoken about the dream a little bit, building the programs, the work that we're doing, all that's amazing stuff. But then the reality of the situation is, as you've said, sometimes you can't help everyone. You can do it as much as you can, but sometimes you can't save some people. How conflicted was you when that situation happened with the 2 young people that you've worked with?
Well, the one, I call him my little brother, the one who isn't here with us anymore, he was like a big part of my heartbeat. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't.
Why?
Because when I started the football team, I was asked by a friend to run this football team. I was fresh out of university. I was looking as to where I was going to place myself. My friend kind of knew that this was my passion, but also wanted me to taste different ways of doing certain things. And he asked me for years to run a football team. I said, nah. I'm at the moment, my life is a bit too selfish for that. I can't give up my weekends, everything for free and run a football team. But then I decided I would do it. And those boys became one of the biggest blessings to me I could have ever asked for, because I didn't even see them coming. I just remember walking onto that football pitch and seeing them all there, running around, little squeaky voices, and they were with me until I got them when they were under 12s, so they were all 10 and 11. They were with me till they were 18.
Wow.
Till they were 18 years old. Over the time I had that team, Cam, I think I engaged at least probably between 250 to 300 young people on a weekend. No payment, no want for payment, no ask for payment. I was out there every weekend, midweek sometimes in the summer, to make sure that there was extra things for them to do. The football team only ever had about 35 actual registered players, but because of the community we built, people would just come for a training session and just join in with the kids, especially in the summer when there was nothing really going on. And it's one of my proudest achievements. So when I say that he was my heartbeat, it's because when you invest so much into them, but then they also pour back into you, these aren't just young people you see every single week. When I got married in 2014, when I got married, they all came to my wedding. I told them all, these were boys who, they didn't really see marriage.
No.
A lot of them came from single parent households. Once again, I don't want to sound cliche, but we are where we are. But it came from single parent households. I told all the boys, football this weekend is cancelled. Oh, Math, what do you mean it's cancelled? It says all of you are going to put on a shirt and tie, trousers, not your school uniform, and you're going to come to the wedding. And I want you to watch this big thing happening for me. I want you to be a part of it. They're in my wedding photos, my official wedding photos. There's the unofficial ones that I've got. These boys became a massive part of me. So when he was taken from us...
Is that before the wedding or after?
After the wedding. This is years after. He was taken from us in 2019. When he was taken from us, we were just, as a team, we were just broken because we couldn't make sense of it. And I'll say this as well, I don't wish on anyone, when you have been in a position where you're high-fiving each other, laughing, joking, watching the boys play fight, and picking them up, sometimes literally picking them up, celebrating, winning games, and so on and so forth, and then you're carrying a casket of this young person on your shoulder and you're walking him to his final resting place. Nothing can prepare you for that. Absolutely nothing. And I think it was one of those moments when I realised, because he's got an amazing family, love his family to bits, love them. They're some of the best people I've ever met in my life. But when you've got all these people that you've poured into and you've invested into, and then all of a sudden they're not there anymore, the conflict isn't so much about the fact that one young person you knew was the person who took the life of another. The conflict is, where do I go from here? Like, what do I do? Because I don't think I can take the heartbreak again. But the issue is, I'm still working with young people who are living in the exact same environments and could be in the exact same predicaments. But I don't want to be in this position ever again. But then those same people that we all banded together, they pick me up. Math, it's going to be okay. Keep going. The family are telling me, we need more people like you outside doing this work with young people.
How many times have you helped avoid that situation?
That's it. So it's like, you need to keep going. Please don't stop.
Without people like yourself, it could be happening a lot more.
And this is it. And I think, to be clear as well, yes, people like myself do a lot of this stuff, and we do it without hesitation, but we don't do it for plaudit. We don't do it for, look how amazing those workers are. You'll find that in Birmingham, for example, where I work, a lot of people do know me and what I do, but a lot of people don't, because I've never been a person who would tell everyone and be loud about all this stuff that I do.
But do you know what I think? And this is why I'm struggling myself with social media and stuff. I feel probably when I go into schools and stuff now, I feel more connected when I'm in my sessions than ever before. I feel more connected at home than ever before. And I'm less on social media than ever before. But it's like, for me, I can't remember, a comedian was on The Breakfast Club and they said, do you enjoy it? and he said, it's not about me. He said, it's not whether I enjoy it or whether I don't. He said, I'm the vehicle to deliver what I deliver. I'm the vehicle to make people laugh. Then it comes that it's not just us, we're the vehicle to go and do what we do. And it's not about getting praise, because I don't think there is much praise when you understand.
Don't need it.
Because also when I say to the students that I work with, I do say from the beginning, I'm not trying to be your friend. You're always going to have friends, but this opportunity might never happen again. So I'm just going to try and give you everything I can, the tools, the strategies, etc., for you to go on and live the life that you want to live.
Can I segue into something there? You use the word vehicle. If you look on my social media again, I've mentioned before, when you work with young people, you need a vehicle. Because if you don't have one, you're going nowhere.
What do you mean by that, though?
So, my vehicle with young people, when I started my career, was sport. That was my vehicle. I used football, a sport that I love, to bring young people
Who do you
together.
support?
Manchester United. For all of my sins, Manchester United. Please don't judge me. At one point, we were a great footballing team. Still a great club, but we're not a great footballing team at the moment. We're going to get there, though. We're going to get there. I promise we're going to get there eventually.
One more games in Manchester than the other team in the last month, anyway.
Well, yeah. So it's not great, but we'll get back there. But I used football as my vehicle because it was something that I knew about. And I used to use the game to teach life. So we'd be in sessions and I'd say, right, boys, today we're going to play attack versus defense, and we're going to set up this way. And the reason why we're going to do it this way is because in life, you're going to need people around you to defend your section, because there are going to be people over there who are going to come to attack it. So who are going to be your brothers in arms? Who's going to be the family that you pick, that you're going to trust, that when your back's against the wall and when there's an onslaught coming towards you, you're not doing this alone? And it was those kind of things. I used football to teach life. There were so many times when they were young, I would say certain things to them. I knew it went over their head. I knew they didn't get it. But then 2 years down the line, they're like, Matt, do you remember that time when we was doing, I get it. So what you mean is, or my favourite times would be, I'd be on the sideline talking to my assistant who helped me, and I would hear them saying it. Lads, we have to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, because if we don't, and you think, oh, I'm not even saying anything anymore. They're teaching themselves. They've taken it all on board. So my vehicle was sport. When sport came to an end, my vehicle became education, because I wasn't in education. Outside of education, my vehicle became about proactive thinking, about encouragement and inspiration. But every practitioner needs to have a vehicle. You can't just decide, I want to go and work with young people. Okay.
A lot of people do.
Yeah, I know. And
They
do
think
what?
it's easy.
Yeah. And do what? I know what we'll do. We'll rock up at the local youth club and volunteer hours, and then they realise I'm going to clear out to even talk to the kids. Youth work is a skill. People don't understand this. CPD yourself.
So I almost sometimes feel like I don't give myself enough credit sometimes. I feel like sometimes I overcomplicate it, but I've clearly got a formula of what works, but sometimes articulating that formula down on, like when I do staff sessions, it's like, can you talk about the work that you do with boys and this and this and that? I'm like, yeah, I can. And I'm like, but what do I actually do?
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Because you do too much, that's why.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, because you do too much. And this is it. I think even when I spoke to you, the first time I spoke to you, we laugh about it now, because I was trying to feel you out. I was trying to see.
But I've been around, I know.
So I was trying to work it out. I tried to work it out on the phone, but more importantly, when I first met you face to face, because at the time, you had some of my year 11s.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are watching this, you know how important year 11 is.
Yeah.
I can't have anyone knocking my kids off track.
Yeah.
I can't have it. So you came with all of these fantastic recommendations. He does this, and once again, to me, I'm thinking, that's great. It sounds fantastic, but I want to see how he does it. I want to see how all of this works. And then more importantly, I went to the kids and said, so how was it?
Yeah.
How did he do? And I was getting nothing but positive feedback. I think brilliant. So the kids like him. You've passed the first test. So now I'll go and talk to him more, and I'll see what it's about. And the more we spoke, I realised where you were coming from, why you did it, your action plan, your why, your how. I'm like, you know what, okay, I can,
But it's
I
also
like.
respect as well, isn't it? I'm not like, when you ask me, I'm not trying to pretend I know it all.
Yeah.
Then I'm like asking you questions and like, what do you do? Tell me more about it.
This is it.
And that's what it's about. We don't have all the answers. And I think sometimes when you think you do, that is an issue.
But let's be honest, whenever we speak to people about the work we do, if their answers are too perfect, you worry on it. Because you're thinking to yourself, this sounds a bit too pro-formed. Like,
I'll be real with you. I stay away, and it's probably the wrong attitude, because I help a lot of people if they message me asking for advice or help. But I normally try and stay away from most people who do what we do.
I understand. I get it.
For the simple fact, there's a big enough market for all of us to help, but I need to see it. Don't be at the start of your journey and tell me what you want to do. Like, get involved first before I know whether you're serious or not. Like even like with you now, anything I can do to help and vice versa, I know we would look after each other because I know we know. Do you understand?
Yeah.
We got that respect. We got that why. We know what we're in it for. We can both offer different things, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Like, I don't see anyone as competition. And the reason why is because sometimes I know I'm not the perfect fit for one group, but somebody else might be. And it's about understanding that. It's like, move your ego out the way.
And this is it. I think one of my favorite TED Talks is a TED Talk by a lady named Rita Pearson, who, God rest her soul, isn't here anymore. And the TED Talk was about the fact that every child needs a champion, and her outlining what a champion means and how we go about championing children. And she talks about the amount of staff she's talked to who had a really roundabout way of doing things, but she knew that their way was going to fail with those children because she worked with those children, and she knew, well, listen, if you don't do this and if you're not polite and you don't do, they're not going to work with you very well. But she also said that so many people she tried to help, as in practitioners, didn't want to listen to her, so they had a rough time. And I think sometimes it's about understanding that, yes, you won't be every child's champion. It can't happen that way. There are some children who just won't rock with you for whatever reason.
Had it in the school the other day.
Just won't rock with you. And half the time, if we can probably segue to it, it's about representation. You don't look like someone that I personally want to rock with. You don't come from where I come from. You don't sound like me. You just don't look like someone I should be taking advice from. Even if they're wrong, it's still their opinion. But it's really important that we understand.
Why do you think I impact so many different places though? So like, why have I at your school impacted in a positive way? Even for example, in an inner city school in Birmingham I worked at, literally the group said, we got past your website, we looked what you look like, you was this white dude, whatever, with your hair at the time, whatever. We're thinking, what's he gonna teach us? Genuinely, the girl said, we looked at your picture and we laughed. And even the assistant principal at times said, I don't know how this is going to go. Do you understand? But it went in there and done some of the best work we've ever done.
So let me use an analogy. It's what I call my Casio watch. One of my favourite watches is a black rubber strap G-Shock. My wife bought it for me over 10 years ago. I love that watch. And I love the watch because it does what it says on the tin. It's not flashy, it's not anything, but it does all these different things that if you're a watch guy, you know it's legit. But to see it, you don't think anything of it. So a lot of people will look at you and go, oh, I don't know about him, you know, I don't know. But then they talk to you and they listen to you and you show them different ways of thinking and you put on different sessions and all of a sudden they're thinking, yo, this guy's multifunctional, this is fantastic. He actually does all the things that he says on the tin. And what happens is that if you're lucky enough, even if they prejudge you, because you go in, you're the old faithful, you're the Casio, you do exactly what it says on the tin, and they like it and they're happy because there's no frills, there's no nonsense, there's no performative idiosyncrasies. It's just, he comes in and he's great, he talks to us properly. So the watch tells the time, it's never late, it's brilliant. And that's what it is, it's the old Casio. I love that watch because it does exactly what it's supposed to do and then some, once you get past the fact that it doesn't look flashy and amazing, but it's still an amazing piece of kit. It's an amazing piece of kit. Other watches are available, but it is an amazing piece of it is an amazing piece of kit. And this is the thing, young people will look at us sometimes, and because I used to struggle talking with girls, working with groups of girls, because my history was always working with boys. But then the girls would realise, okay, he's our man, but he's cool, he gets it. when we say certain things, he's not trying to act like he knows all the time. He's willing to just listen.
But that's what I think the difference
He's willing
is.
to just listen. He doesn't have to always talk and be heard. And I think this is a big thing about being really good at what you do, is understanding, stop trying to be what you think all the children want you to be. Be yourself. And unfortunately, sometimes that won't be what they want or need, but a lot of the time, I must say the majority of the time, they will come to absolutely love having you around, because it's the old faithful Cassio watch you do everything that they want, and they know they can get it from you all the time.
That's my new name on Instagram. If you could sit down with any one person, dead or alive, who would you sit with?
Malcolm X.
Okay, tell me more.
Malcolm X was one of the best orators, thinkers, social movers, or mobilitators, if that's even a word. But his ability his ability to socially mobilize people was fantastic. He had this way of thinking and of delivering his thoughts that I don't think has ever been replicated. We're talking about a man that spent the majority of his life committing crime, in prison, looked at as less than. We're talking about a man that was raised in a time when his blackness was a stain, his ethnicity was a stain. On top of being black, he was Muslim. And then not only did he have to fight against all of the problems he had trying to fight during the civil rights movement, but also the squabbers he was having to have within the black community because of the way he thought, because of the way he spoke, and he just never ever veered off course. He was willing to adapt, but not willing to just say, all right, then I'll sit this one out. I'll go on the sidelines. Even to the point of his assassination, he was willing to stand on what he believed in. He was willing to teach, preach, and show people a better way to be and to mobilize and to love and to understand. And he just was a man that, if I ever had the opportunity to sit down and speak to him, I think I'd ask him questions and I'd just sit down and be quiet and just listen to him speak, because I just feel like the way he had an ability to gain the attention of people, and that level of attention, he was then able to use that platform. Was amazing.
Was he different to Martin Luther King? So reason why I say that, we had a fitness group back in the day, and I put in there a Malcolm X quote, and then somebody commented under said, "That's a controversial person, that one, mate."
To some people.
Why?
Because he was controversial to some people, because he said things that some people found to be quite inflammatory, and he said things at a time when probably it needed to be said, but the way he delivered it was just so blunt. His analogies were just so blunt that it was hard to digest. The reason why people liked Martin Luther King, because he was easier to digest. Still a very amazing man. Once again, great with social mobility and change, a fantastic leader, a fantastic orator, but he was seen as like the more palatable version of what it meant to be a civil rights leader. And because he had an approach of non-violence. Whatever happens, we will not resort to violence, we will not resort to any kind of poor behavior. We're going to stand in unison, we're going to stand in formation, we're going to stand organized and ready to show people that we deserve to be respected. And because of that more peaceful stance that he had, that's why he was seen as a more palatable person, and people will celebrate him probably before they celebrate Malcolm. But to know who Malcolm was and to read his work and to listen to him speak was to know that you were in the presence of greatness.
If you had a magic wand to fix anything in education, just one thing, or for our young people, say, what would that be? To build a
better view of what it means to be understanding. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of our work begins with understanding who we're working with. I have always said for many years now, in education and many places, alternate provision, so on and so forth, I've always said we create a herd mentality with young people, and when the young people don't fit in the herd, they're problematic. When the young people don't fit in the herd or do as they're told quickly, they're seen as problematic. When young people won't do as they're told straight away and conform to whatever adults want them to do, they're seen as problematic. Most of these children that are labelled problematic are not problematic. They just want to do things a bit differently, and we have to look at why. And I think as once again, one of my favourite quotes, if we seek first to understand before being understood, our work will be a lot more impactful and a lot more effective, but we don't. We want the children to get us. We want the children to do what we tell them to do, and we're not really interested in the nuances of their behaviour. But we have to be interested in. The reason why I specialise in engagement and behavioural strategy is because you can't get young people to really get on board unless we engage with them the way that they need to be engaged with, and we understand their behaviour. So if there's one thing I could change in education in regards to how we deliver to our young people, is that we build up a greater understanding of what it means to understand. Because then we will have a lot less problems in the school building, a lot less children unnecessarily just sitting in detention every single day, or having phone calls home, or feeling like, you know what's the point in being here? Because I'm just going to be here to get in trouble. I'm going to be here to be ostracised. I'm going to be here knowing that I'm probably not even going to get fantastic GCSEs, or I'm probably not going to get AS levels or A levels, or get onto an apprenticeship because no one gets me. I'm just the problem child, and most of these children are not problematic. Our way of looking at them is. So I want to make sure that we are building a greater understanding of what it means to understand.
Where can people find you?
So there's the website, we'll start there. The website is www.wethink.com. There is my social media, which is just Instagram @wethink. I don't really do any work so forth on Twitter. I just talk about football.
But we'll link.
Yeah, so you can put it all in there. But you know, you can find me on LinkedIn.
And if anyone wants to bring you into their school,
yeah, it's literally you can go on the website, go on the inquiry page, go on the Instagram. If you send me a message on my Instagram, it goes straight to my inquiries at work.
Does it?
Yeah.
Well, your emails.
Yeah. So if you message me, there's a email function on the bottom. You can click on email on my page, and it goes straight there. I do respond to DMs on Instagram for work purposes, but I always transfer you straight to. Yeah, I always just transfer people straight to the inquiry page, because either myself or the operations manager will get straight on it, and you'll normally get a response within 48 hours to say, oh, you know, what is it you want, or should we have a conversation via Teams, or so on and so forth. But yeah, I'm trying to get out there a lot more, do a lot more things to be seen. Once again,
it's needed.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's my name, Matthew Popo.
You're on LinkedIn?
Yeah. Find me on LinkedIn.
I don't even have you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I don't really. Once again, I've had a bit of a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn, but I am going to start using it.
LinkedIn's one of my favourite.
Yeah, I'm going to start using it a lot more, because there are so many great and amazing professionals on there that I love to engage with.
Including Cameron Parker.
Yeah.
With that said, guys, that is another episode of the Dreams to Reality podcast. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, do all the good stuff. I don't think this is going to be a one take. I would like to invite Matthew back on multiple occasions, because, as I said before, as a conversation I learn a lot about as well. So Matthew, appreciate it, mate.
Appreciate it. And you're my first podcast as well. This is the first one I've ever done. So
you're not allowed to do any others.
So I appreciate it.
I'm joking.
I appreciate it.
Like, comment, subscribe. See you next time. Bye-bye.
My name is Sean Lord, and I help deliver the Girls Growth Programme, a programme that helps deliver impact for teenage girls, ensuring that they're happier and healthier on their school journey, with a big focus on relationships, friendships, body image, self-esteem, mental health and mindset.
I'm Natalie. I'm one of the leaders for our Girls Growth Programme, where we discuss important issues such as self-esteem, diet, exercise and confidence. Think of 3 unhealthy habits that you have for yourself at this moment in time. And when you don't get enough sleep, it's harder to regulate your emotions, and small problems can seem much bigger than they are. Exercise isn't just about looking good or staying fit, it's vital for your mental health.
So get in touch today to get the support that your girls need now.